Hello, avid readers, book nerds, and casual observers. Welcome to the Read Along brought to you by the Lit Round Table. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Anna, and this is our read-along of The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. This is Book 2 of the Broken Earth trilogy.
It's week 2?
Yeah, week 2.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah. School, man.
It's because it's, well, and we just read the first book, so it's just a continuation, right. So it feels like it just never stopped.
Correct. Yep, we're on week 2, which means we read chapters 4 through 6. There was a sneaky little interlude in there, too. Which, that was sneaky. Wild. Should we talk about the interlude first?
Yeah. So, that's Hoa talking, right?
Right.
Like, that's my impression.
Well, we figured out at the end of the last book that the interludes in that book were Hoa.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that is still the case here.
Yeah, unless N.K. Jemisin's being sneaky.
Which she could be.
She could be.
But it sounded like Hoa. I think it has to be Hoa.
Yeah. Really weird things that the interlude said about, like, going to war with bed bugs, and, like, you don't hate the bed bugs. They're annoying, but you don't, like... And I'm like, I don't know, man. I hate mosquitoes a lot. I would go to war against mosquitoes.
Well, and after... So that came right after the Essun chapter with the horrendous bugs. So I'm like, ugh. Yeah, I think that they are going to go to war against the bugs.
Yeah.
But
that was terrifying.
He's revealed that he intends to kill her. He's just saving that for himself. So he's protecting her from other people so that he can do it.
I think he wants to eat her.
I think he does too.
He's just gonna... I think that the Stone Eaters, like, prey on the Origin people and try to turn them into stone so they can eat them.
Yeah.
I think it's a weird thing.
I think so too. Okay, well, let's talk about Essun now. Mm-hmm. We had 2 Essun chapters. Ooh, I should go through our chapter names. Yes. Chapter 4 was You Are Challenged, which, yes, that was the bug chapter. Chapter 5 is Nassun Takes the Reins. I am super interested in talking about that chapter with you. Oh my gosh. And then chapter 5, You Commit to the Cause.
My brain.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. The psychology.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do Essun first. Yeah. Do you want to do both the Essun chapters and then end on...
Yep. We'll just talk about Essun first and then we'll do Nassun.
Nassun?
Mm-hmm.
Nassun. I feel like the audiobooks is like Nassun. They like make it a...
Yeah, well, it's Essun too. But I also have it sped up, so I can't tell if that's just because of the speed I have it set at. You know? Because that distorts things.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, Essun. So it's in the middle of the night, and Essun wakes up.
Yeah.
To, like, noises.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out it's screaming. And some of the hunters have been attacked by bugs.
Yeah, they fell into a creepy, like, ash nest thing, and they've got these bugs on them that look like little jewels until they start flapping their wings, and it's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, like, the smell of, like, cooked meat, and it's just disgusting. And then we learned why, and it's because these bugs will, like, shoot boiling water into you and, like,
cook you.
They're cooking you because cooked food lasts longer in a season. So it's just another one of these creepy evolutionary, like, biological functions that these bugs have, where once it's a season, they start to cook their food, and that's so messed up.
Right. And, like, before a season, what's the doctor's name?
Laren?
Is
it Laren?
Yes. He's talking about how, like, these are native bugs. They've seen them before, but they did not...
Sorry, Lerna.
Thank you. Lerna did not, like, they didn't know why these bugs had, like, cavities to hold water.
Yeah, because he says some animals will, like, eat them during a drought because they have water in them. But yeah, apparently they can make that water scalding hot and shoot it at you or into you if they're latched onto you. And so this poor dude just had like a dozen bugs on his legs, and they were just cooking his legs.
Mm-hmm.
That is horrifying. Thanks, N.K. Jemisin.
Mm-hmm.
More nightmare fuel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then Essun just kind of stumbles into helping.
Yeah, Alabaster like uses orogeny to ice one of the bugs and get it to fall off. And then that gives her the idea to try that, and then she's able to do it as well through some fine tuning. She didn't realize she could.
Well, I don't think that Alabaster
precisely.
did it himself. He did it through her. He did that thing where he like.
Oh, did he
I
hijack her
think he
again?
hijacked her because then she's like, I don't know why I just did that, and then she looks up and he's looking at her and she's like, oh my gosh, she did that thing again.
I missed that. I thought that he just did it.
No,
and then
I think he hijacked her
collapsed.
because then they have the whole conversation about how she doesn't think he can do orogeny anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the doctor's like, why didn't you do that sooner? And she's like, I didn't even know I could. Mm-hmm. It hadn't occurred to me yet again.
Yeah, let's talk about Lerna, because he's gotten a little dark. She talks about how he used to be so innocent, and now he's like smoking this mellow joint, which is this
a cigarette,
like fantasy version of like a cigarette / marijuana maybe. But he also is using the term raga to describe all of the origins in the place. He's like he's like this burnt out, like I don't know, he's just very different now.
He's incredibly bitter.
Yeah. Cynical.
Yeah, because he makes a comment about how like his mother, or she realizes through talking to him that his mother was a casualty. And how she unleashed herself upon her old calm.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And that hadn't occurred to her. That had probably happened.
That in dooming the old calm, she doomed this man's entire like childhood home and family, and yeah, the consequences of her actions.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Lena asks her, like, so you're telling me that the season's going to last for like 10,000 years. So what are you going to do about it? She's like, huh? What do you mean, what am I going to do about it? Well, this Alabaster guy is making you do stuff with the obelisks, right? I mean, I guess, but I don't know what that's all about. So it's just like this very curt conversation of him being like, so what's the plan, idiot? How are you going to save the world? Because you jerks are the ones that broke it with your magic earthquake powers. So
well, she also has the thought that if Fulcrum were still around, the orogeny do not exist during the season because the Guardians would have destroyed them.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, the Guardians, if there ever was another season, because the Fulcrum doesn't have any storehouses for food, the Guardians would just sweep in and kill them all because they failed anyway at preventing a season.
Right. So might as well start over.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Was it in this chapter that she has the revelation that, is it with Lerna, where he's like, or no, it's with Tonkee. So, and they're having a conversation about how humans have to have been around as long as the obelisks.
That was Tonkee.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can transition over to Tonkee. I feel like that was pretty much it for the Lerna stuff. He's super cynical and bitter now, and just wanting her to do something. And so then Essun in her next chapter starts talking with, also the dude that had the bugs on his legs. After they get the bugs off, they're going to have to just kill the guy because they can't save his legs. And he's going to be, like, they would have to amputate them. And he's not going to be able to work to help support the comm. So,
which is very problematic.
Yeah.
But
very utilitarian way of looking at people.
Yes.
Unless you serve a purpose, you get cut out.
Right.
Yeah, not very merciful. So, anyway, he's also very bitter about that because he's going to have to go kill this guy. Mm-hmm. And Essun realizes later that by using her powers to take the bugs off of him, she basically forced them to make the decision to kill him, because if the bugs had stayed on him, then the bugs could have just killed him, and then that would have been that, and nobody would have had to have felt guilty about it. But now she like forced this dilemma onto the comm leader of like, well, now what are you going to do? Guess you better kill him. So she kind of wrestles with that internally as well, which I thought was really interesting. Just the psychology in these chapters has been crazy. Just, yeah.
Right, because Essun is feeling incredibly inadequate. She's noticing and pointing out to us all of these things that she doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't know how to move forward. She doesn't know why she's doing the things she's doing.
Right.
And she doesn't know if she trusts anybody. So she's very much in this place of bewilderment.
Yeah. And then Lerna doesn't really help things. No. He just kind of bombards her with these accusations like, you could have fixed him as soon as you walked in the room. Why didn't you? He starts telling her that, like, yeah, your daughter's not going to survive this season. Like, why are you even trying? Like, it's like he has turned into like the devil on her shoulder, and like the mean voice of like self-doubt. Like he was kind of embodying that this whole chapter.
Yeah.
And it made me feel icky.
It was very logical. He made very valid points.
Yeah.
Which is what the devil on your shoulder does. So if anything, it's a compliment to the writing.
For sure.
But yeah, her conversation with Tonkee was also bewildering.
I loved it. I love Tonkee so much.
Too.
She's like one of my I think she might be my favorite character.
She's wonderful. She's very funny.
Because she gives Hanji energy from Attack on Titan, which Hanji is like maybe my favorite character in that show too. So
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that whole conversation was really fascinating.
Because it starts off by talking about the moon and satellites, and then Tonkee goes into this whole thing about satellites and how the obelisks are satellites to Essun, which that freaks Essun out. I thought that was fascinating. Because Essun's seeing them as like chains, like her connections to them is a barrier, is something that's weighing her down. And Tonkee's like, no, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's like you aren't tugging them along with you. They're moving along with you because they can't help it. Like. Right. Dragging something with a chain is different from having something like orbit around you because of like gravitational force. Like it's a different thing. But she also then starts to talk about how like the socket in Jimenez and the obelisks, and apparently there was like these stories that had been passed down through the leadership class about like how the obelisks hold some key to saving the world and stopping the seasons and all this stuff. And so I'm really interested for that to get unpacked more.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Her commentary on how like Tonkee's belief that these ancient documents were just the leadership's way of making themselves feel important.
Yeah.
Which is such a commentary on like how historical events are passed down for us too, right? The victor tells the story.
Yeah, it's perspective is important, and if you're only hearing it from one perspective, then it's going to be clouded. It's going to be obscured,
right?
because of bias of the storytellers and the historians that were working. So it's I'm really interested to see more of that unfold. I'm interested to hear more about like what the socket actually did.
Well, and also
I thought
she said that the socket, that the obelisks are all different sizes, and I had pictured them as all like the same size.
Or like they're all different shapes and sizes, and they're all unique.
So they don't all fit into whatever socket. They have specific sockets that they fit into.
Unless the socket can like change somehow to accommodate the different. We don't know. So many unknowns. But yeah, man. They also talked about like humanity. So this was the part that intrigued me, was talking about like humanity pre-shattering. And they were like speculating about whether or not like these so when a season happens, these plants and animals have like these things that trigger so that they can survive. And Tonkee compares it to like having a wagon wheel with a broken spoke, and then you have to put like a spare on it to get by. It's like, it's just nature's like slapdash attempt at trying to like micro evolve these species so that they can survive the environment. And see, at first I was wondering like, what if orogeny is like what that was for humans? Like, could we do that before shattering? But then, like when she's talking with Alabaster and stuff, and he's talking about how they called it magic. So it's like, okay, there was something before shattering, like with the people that made the obelisks and everything. But maybe it looked different. I don't know. We'll have to see. I wonder if like the magic that Alabaster is talking about was like the same as what they do now, or if this is kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. But so she talked about how the humans have endured this whole time. Which was also cool.
And what did they say exactly? It was like Tonkee didn't think that there were, like before there were, right. It was because she was saying she thinks there was a time when there wasn't seasons. And because apparently that's a debate where some people think that there were always seasons, and some people think, a fifth season that is, and some people think there was a time when there wasn't any seasons like this, any fifth seasons. And so Tonkee is saying, no, there was definitely a time when there wasn't, because all of this seems really random and like unintended. Like bugs aren't supposed to shoot boiling water.
Right.
And they talk about that cat-like creature that, or the mongoose thing that like starts eating meat once it's a season and turns kind of feral.
Right.
Interesting.
I thought it was funny how Tonkee was not at all interested in the moon. She was like, "Yeah, whatever. I'm not interested in that."
No. Well, I get the feeling she's about to be.
I think so
she's
too.
about to be like. This is called the Obelisk Gate. I think there's some relation to the obelisks and the moon, and I think that the moon's about to be a Tonkee problem. She better get ready.
I think so too.
But, yeah, and then she does go talk to Alabaster.
She also talks to Amnesty a little bit, which is the guardian.
Yeah, she has,
or not the guardian, the stone eater. That's hanging out with Alabaster.
But yeah, we got that reveal that there's some kind of magical goop. there's magic goop inside Alabaster. Yeah. And Essun could suss it out. And yeah, there's something there. So the Stone Eaters are trying to eat magic rocks. after the origins turn into stone, they want to eat them for the magic rocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird.
So weird. I thought the connections not the connections, but when Essun goes into the infirmary and sees Alabaster being propped up by his Stone Eater, and she is having very accusatory thoughts. I don't know if she's actually talking out loud or not because I was listening on an audiobook and I couldn't tell.
To the Stone Eater?
Yeah. Was she talking or was she thinking?
Yeah, it was out loud because she was trying to get the thing to react, and the only thing it did was it stopped humming music and looked at her like once.
Yeah.
But that's all it did. It never spoke back. But yeah, she was trying to get a reaction out of it for sure.
So she was taunting it, but I think it was cathartic for her because she was saying things like, "You took him away and doomed us. We had no hope after you took him away." Because there was nothing for me and the other origini that were left on that island that we could do because they were all ferals. They didn't have any training. And it was unfair. And it's your fault.
Going up against Fulcrum and Guardians.
Right.
And yeah.
Inan had no chance. And why aren't you feeding him more? Why aren't you taking better care of him? Because he's wasting away. But so that was fascinating. And I think I do think there was some catharsis in that.
She even said, "Why? At least you could have fattened him up before you started eating him. Like, why aren't you feeding him?"
Yeah. But then she has memories of, like, even when they were younger, she had to force him to eat too. Like, he just is so not interested in his own self-preservation.
Yeah. He's got better things to do, you know. Yeah. Eating is a distraction. Waste of time. I feel like he views food as a very, like, it's fuel and it's just there to keep you running.
Right.
Which, man, I've never been able to understand those people.
Me either.
Like, man, I enjoy eating way too much for it to just be fuel.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Alabaster makes her look at his stumpy arm. And look at the rock.
Look at my stump, bro.
It's weird.
Yeah, and that's when she feels the magic goop.
The magic.
I'm gonna call it silly putty.
I was thinking more like lava lamp goo.
Ooh, I like that though.
Yeah.
He's like a lava lamp.
So magic.
Anyway,
they've got magic in their bodies that can reach out to the other magic. Right? Is that what's happening?
Like, if there's magic that's detectable, and there's, like, what's happening to him is a consequence of what he did at Jimenez. So, I don't know. I feel like we still have things to learn about this magic system.
Oh, for sure.
But
absolutely.
And I'm looking forward to it because, yeah, I'm curious to know more about, like, how this works with the obelisks, especially. Because I feel like even Fulcrum, like, what they've been doing, I feel like they've been using training wheels, right? Like, I feel like they're missing something. That there's some kind of missing piece to how this is supposed to work.
Right.
Because they even say in the chapter, Essun's like, yeah, I mean, nothing is supposed to behave this way. This is random. Like, you're not supposed to be able to move a mountain with a thought, you know?
Right.
That's just not something that's supposed to be able to happen.
Right.
So how come it can happen?
Right.
No other creatures do this. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
She also has the moment of, or I guess they talk about the obelisks again, right? And Alabaster's like, you were greedy. You pulled the onyx. Like, I told you to grab the topaz, and you grabbed the onyx too. And she's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he, like, kind of accusatorily is like, well, what were you doing? And I think hearing her explanation in contrast with the Nassun chapter is really poignant. Because she's like, I was trying to take care of these two kids and make sure that they didn't get killed. And I have put every effort of my being into teaching them how to stay quiet. So then to have that contrasted...
She said she'd stopped a dozen catastrophes a night. Like, she like got two sleeping origin kids.
Yeah.
That can just, like, you know, What if one of them has a nightmare?
Right.
What then?
Right.
They could destroy the whole town.
Right.
You know.
So then to have that in contrast with the Nassun chapter and Nassun's perspective, which is that her mother was overbearing and only ever wanted to train and didn't see her as a person, just saw her as a little origine kid that had to be taught. Like Nassun did not see the love in any of that action, right?
Correct. And I think, man, it's just the commentary on as well of like generational trauma.
Oh my gosh!
Because it's like, dude, because I'm just going back to Cyanite. Cyanite, fulcrum trained, grew up raised by guardians. Like, man, she has serious trauma.
Right.
And I don't
trauma
know
and parents who didn't want her.
Yeah.
But she wanted her kids. Supposedly. Sort of.
And yeah, I mean, she was trying to reclaim the life that she could have had on the pirate island, you know. And so she goes, gets like couples up with this guy, has 2 kids, and it's just crazy because look at like the examples that she had in her life to go on for like how a mother should behave.
Right.
She doesn't.
No, she doesn't.
She doesn't have any good examples to go off of.
No.
And then, so of course, Nassun's gonna become, you know, daddy's girl because he's the one that like takes her fishing and does all the fun things, you know.
Meanwhile, he's completely oblivious of what these kids and their mother are going through. And then the dude murders his kid. I'm sorry. Like, this book is amazing already, and it like the character development is incredible. But I'm just gonna put this out there. If anyone had murdered you when we were that age, there ain't no way in heck I was going anywhere with them.
No, that's yeah. Anna, tell me what that was like reading this chapter.
Oh, it was it was bonkers.
If our father had beat me to death, would you have gone with him?
Absolutely not.
Like, yeah. But she still does a really good job of making it make sense.
Yes.
Like, yes, I would never have done that, but I'm a different person living in a different set of circumstances, and I don't have superpowers. So like, they do a really good job of like making that believable.
Yes.
Why she did that, and man, the manipulation going forward, where now the big shake has happened. Jimenez is cratered. The continent is split in half. And then Jija turns to Nassun and goes, "Did you do this?" Even though she's the one that saved them and prevented them from getting blown away. And that's the moment it clicks for her when she realizes, like, oh, you're not my dad anymore. You're Jija. And now she's gonna call him daddy when she's trying to manipulate him and get him to keep her alive.
Right. But he is no longer. She does no longer recognize him as her father. And then he murders another person who's paralyzed.
He just so casually kills people. This guy just
right.
I mean, is it because he just killed his son that he was able to do that so casually? Or is this something that he's just always been able to do? Like, what was his job before? It wasn't anything to do with that. He wasn't like a soldier.
No.
Or anything. Like, man.
It's very strange.
Just crazy.
So we had 2 mercy killings, like, back to back here. Putting people down like they're horses. And it's wacky. It's creating a lot of cognitive dissonance.
It's a very like it's like the plants and the animals. Like once it's a season, everything changes. Everyone's like not only physically with like the animals, but everyone's mindset changes. It's all of a sudden very utilitarian. If you don't serve a purpose, if you can't contribute to survival, you're done.
Right.
This guy's got a broken back and he can't move his legs. All he's gonna do is eat food, that other people that can contribute and help people survive could be eating. So you're done.
Right. I mean,
it's just
right.
brutal. So brutal.
So that moment, Jija wants to take him to a hospital, and Nassun has to tell him there is no hospital.
Yeah. That town doesn't exist anymore, Dad.
The town after that does not exist. And she knows that they could go back to Torimo because her mom saved Torimo.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to go back because she doesn't want to face her mom.
Nope.
And I think there's something, like, obviously she feels a level of trauma and abuse from her mother.
Yeah.
But I think there's something else there, and I just can't quite wrap my mind around it. Of not wanting to go back to the thing that can save you or protect you.
Maybe it's because running back to mom is going to be like admitting that mom was right all those years.
Maybe.
I think part of it is kind of like a rebellious thing of not wanting to give Essun like the satisfaction, you know. Like I think Nassun wants to be like, because that's the whole reason why she wanted to go be a lorist, right? She wanted independence. She wanted to get out of that town. Yeah. I think she would have been sad about leaving her dad and brother behind, but I think a lot of it was she was trying to leave her mom behind, you know, and like the training and the dumb, like all the origin stuff. And this happens, world-ending cataclysm, and then the solution is go back to mom and she can like help protect you. It's like, but I have those powers too.
Right.
I'll protect myself. I'm not going to go back to mom.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's like a pride and a stubbornness and a not wanting to take mom's help.
Sure. Sure.
That's like a reaction to the upbringing and the perceived lack of love from her mom.
Right.
And the generational trauma and all this stuff. Yeah.
How quickly her body just automatically went into, like, she has been trained so well that she went like
clam up and
to
not
clam up.
Yeah.
Like when her father struck her, she didn't react. Yeah, he is a bad dude. She didn't react. She kept calm. And then when the shake happened, she had her wherewithal to protect her area. So even though she resents her mother, everything her mother has taught her is suddenly incredibly crucial to her survival.
Yeah. I think now it's like, who's going to kill Jija?
Well, I think it's going to be Shafa, which is... I'm feeling more and more convinced
that theory.
That Shafa's going to come in. Shafa's going to come back around. And he's going to end up with Nassun.
Because here's the thing. Wasn't it last chapter? Okay, isn't Jija trying to take her somewhere where he thinks she can be cured? Mm-hmm. Isn't that what's happening here? Mm-hmm. This place that he's heard of where he thinks that origins can be cured.
It's Shafa.
Who could that be?
It has to be Shafa.
He's collecting them because it's all he knows how to do.
Right.
He's not curing them, though. He can't do that.
No.
Or maybe eventually he just kills them, you know? But, like, he's not curing them.
No.
They're going to roll up on this place. It's going to be Shafa. Ugh.
And he's going to know that she is Cyanite's daughter. He's going to know.
I would not be surprised if you're right. If he has some kind of weird, creepy way to tell.
He just is. And, also, totally missed this in the Essun chapter, but Alabaster told her she's probably a 9-ringer now. So...
Oh, yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah.
So she's got powerful kids.
Mm-hmm.
Kid now.
Oh.
But it's so fast. I appreciate how the first book, we didn't really know if we were going back and forward in time right away. But in this one, she's like, oh yeah, and they stopped here at this river where a few days from now, Essun will meet Hoa at this river, and they'll, or whatever. It's like
this is the river where Hoa takes a bath.
Right. It's cueing us like, oh yeah, and in a couple days, this thing is going to happen here. So letting us know how far behind Essun is from Nassun and Jija.
I'm just so curious for when the paths finally intersect.
Well,
it was also it was really interesting to me when Essun describes what it was like when she takes the life of her kid in the first book, and like when you
compare the two,
like contrast that against Jija, because like we said last time, they've both killed their own kid, which is just terrifying, But I'm so curious to get into his head because we haven't really gotten that chance yet to learn like what his thought process was. Not saying that there's any kind of justification, but I'm just curious to hear the explanation.
It is interesting
because
yeah, sorry, finish your thought and then I will.
Just because the way Essun framed it was like when she killed her kid, it was I'm going to protect the innocent childhood that you had, and I'm not going to let you become a node maintainer.
Yes, exactly.
And be abused and be a slave.
Yes, that is exactly what I was going to say.
Which made me think, okay, so putting yourself in Jija's shoes, you think that origins are monsters, and that I'm like, did he view it as almost a mercy because he didn't want his son to grow up with people thinking he's a monster, or to get taken away by guardians to go work for Fulcrum, like.
I don't think that.
But then there's
my inclination is to say that it was more of a self-preservation thing, where he's been taught that origins are dangerous.
Yeah. And if his kid is a feral origin who has no training, could be he was afraid that he would just get iced one day by his own kid. I don't know. I'm just there's so many complex emotions and thought processes with all of these characters, and I'm just really curious to get into his head now and to actually hear like, what the heck, dude?
Yeah.
Why did you beat your 2-year-old to death?
Yeah.
Like I want to hear that thought process because Essence is very like merciful, and she just like covered his mouth and just like smothered him, but Jija beat him to death. Like
right.
I want to hear
violent.
the yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then
Anyway.
the part where Nassun is thinking about her little brother and how perfect he was, and just like, it was so sad.
Yeah, it was awful. Well, I'm glad that Nassun has finally snapped out of it and has stopped being daddy's girl, at least on the inside. I'm super curious to see where that goes, and I'm terrified for when they meet Shafa because I think you're 1,000,000% right. It's happening.
Yeah.
Like, it's happening.
I would be shocked if it didn't.
Yeah. Man. Ugh. I'm excited a little bit, excited to see it happen just because it's a good story, right? But I'm just terrified. I'm terrified for the characters, but I'm excited for the story that it makes.
I get it.
I
get it.
Man. So yeah. That was 4 through 6.
Yep.
Plus interlude.
Yeah. Okay, so for next week, you're going to read chapters 7 through 9.
7 through 9. Maybe there's some sneaky interludes in there too.
Maybe. We'll find out.
Cool. Oh, last thing. The weird little end section on that last chapter with the Stone Eaters was creepy.
Okay. I don't remember.
How it was from some college dude from a time a long ago time. Observing for hours, okay, these Stone Eaters started talking to each other. There was like a gathering of them. The Stone Eaters knew I was there, I'm certain of it. They just didn't care. I observed them for hours as they stood motionless, voices echoing out of nowhere. The language they spoke to each other was strange. Arctic, perhaps? One of the coastals? So they're all speaking a different language, but I'm like, this is just whatever the past language was. Watch, they're speaking English. Like, it's... After some 10 hours, I'll admit I fell asleep, woke up to the sound of a great crash and crunch, so loud I thought it was the shattering itself upon me, and then when I dared to lift my eyes, one of the Stone Eaters was scattered chunks on the ground, and the other stood before, save for one change, directed right at me, a bright glittering smile. So, like...
Not endorsed by
Stone
the
Eater.
University.
Yeah. Stone Eater, inter-conflict between Stone Eaters, they don't agree. I think that the Stone Eaters were people. I think that's what's happening here. Like maybe the Stone Eaters are the original origin that like
survived,
blew up the moon, you know? And them turning into Stone Eaters was the consequence for what they did with blowing up the moon, kind of like how Crater Jimenez is turning alabaster to stone. Like, yeah, I think there's something there. I think that there's something there. So.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just more conjecture, wild theorizing.
Well, I'm sure we'll learn more next week.
Indeed. I'm excited.
Me too.
You mean next, not next week. Next part.
You know, you guys know this stick by now.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But I guess until next time, happy reading.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Later.